Actually, I suppose I can just record to my computer. That's all right, I'll record it to the cloud and download it again later. All right. Well, I've got 2 minutes after, so that's close enough for me. Ah, there's some of this. Hello. Welcome. Nice to see you again. Can you hear me, Patty? Can you hear me? Great, perfect. All right. So we're just getting ready to get started here. As I mentioned, I'm going to mute everybody actually right now. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself right away and ask them so you don't have to wait too long or get too far along. There's also a chat box in the corner, so you can also send me a chat if that feels more comfortable for you or if it's easier to facilitate. I'm also recording this meeting, so if you want me to send you a copy so you can reference it for your own personal tapping, you can do that and I will email it to you. Other than that, let's start with the presentation. Does anybody really quick before I get started, does anybody have anything that they for sure want to know, anything that they're curious about at all? Okay. And have any of you done any kind of tapping before? A little bit? Okay, Patty has? Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll address a little bit about kind of the approach I take with tapping as well. Because everyone does it, not everybody, but a lot of people do it a little bit differently. If you go online, you'll see different points being used. You'll see different setup phrases. You'll see some that are more general and more specific. And I'll talk about some of those differences as we go. So let me share my screen. Perfect. And that's interesting. There we go. Okay, so once again, my name is Dawn Bennett, and I'm an EFT practitioner, certified internationally through the International Association of EFT Practitioners. They just changed their name, actually. So that's not their correct name. But what I want to do today, the goals, is I want you to have a basic understanding of the benefits of EFT and how it can create change for you in your life. I want you to understand other applications for EFT that you can use on your own and be able to use the basic EFT for yourself. Emotional freedom techniques actually is a series of techniques. So the one that you see most often is our basic technique. It's the one that a lot of the research is done on, and it's also the one that most people use because it's quick, it's easy, and it really can cover a broad range of things. We have different techniques that we use, for example, when we're working with people in pain. We have different techniques that we're working when we're addressing trauma. We have different techniques that we use if somebody doesn't want to talk about anything, or let's say that you want to work on a trauma without actually talking about the trauma, or something's too scary to talk about, or you're like, I don't even know if this is it. Is this really it? There are different techniques that we use in order to help people through those. So our basic is kind of our basic, but we have multiple other techniques that we use as well. We even have one that we use for affirmations. So if you ever like, oh, I'm doing these affirmations, but I don't really feel like I believe them, you can actually tap on the affirmations to find out where your subconscious or where your social training or where whatever it is for you is preventing you from actually moving forward with that affirmation. And so within the basic EFT structure, I also want you to understand when you might need to reach out for help and use a professional. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple studies, some research. I'll give you some of my own experiences in EFT, but just remember that EFT is not, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a therapist. I do not treat or cure disease, all of that kind of fun disclaimer-y stuff. All right. And there we go. Oh. So what is tapping? So basically it's a series of techniques that help us shift our limiting beliefs. It's been shown in studies and in MRIs to reduce the stress hormone cortisol, to start changing the way that the brain patterns. So for example, I'll talk about a study on weight loss that they did, and they actually saw changes in the MRIs. It's a method you can use to help yourself get unstuck. So if you feel like you keep thinking of something over and over, or you're not able to move through a situation, or you're stuck in a pattern of thinking about something coming up in the future, you can use emotional freedom techniques or tapping or EFT, right? It's all refers to the same thing, in order to move yourself through that. And what I love about EFT, some of you know I've been a massage therapist for 20 years. I became a classical homeopath because I really believe the connection between mind, body, spirit is very important. But the thing I love about EFT is that you can do a lot of it on your own as well. And I really like people being empowered to take their own healing into their own hands and use it in a way that feels good for them, so they don't have to wait until they see me or another professional. The lovely thing about tapping as well is it can help you see situations from a new and healthier perspective. So often as I'm tapping with clients, they'll say like, oh, I just thought of another way I can do that. Or, hey, I guess they were just doing the best that they could. Or, you know, they get calmness, they get clarity, they see situations from a different angle that feels healthier for them. So EFT has been shown beneficial for reducing or neutralizing emotions around current, past, and future events, helping control and eliminate cravings, decreasing physical discomfort, including pain, reducing or eliminating fears and phobias. In fact, I work with my mom around her fear of heights as one of my case studies. And she went from not even being able to walk down a path because it was too high up in Taylors Falls, Minnesota, to being able to stand on the kick wall and look over the edge. So that was really amazing to see. And that was only in a series of 4 sessions. And then helping people find the blocks behind their affirmations and goals. So just a quick overview, you can find all of this online. But they did some stress research around EFT. And they measured the cortisol levels, or the stress hormones, and psychological distress symptoms of 83 non-conditional subjects. And they split them up to groups that were emotional freedom technique, psychotherapy group, and no treatment. And so they found that with saliva tests, that the EFT group showed significant improvements in anxiety, depression, and decrease of cortisol level compared to the other 2 groups. In a study around anxiety done by Bond University, they actually had 5,000 subjects that were assigned for tapping cognitive behavioral for their anxiety. And complete remission was reported by 76% of the subjects in the tapping group and 51% of cognitive behavioral therapy group. The cool thing is that the emotional freedom techniques subjects improved in an average of 3 sessions compared to an average of 15 for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is why a lot of cognitive behavioral therapists, psychotherapists, counselors are all using EFT now, along with their other tools that they have in their toolkit, in order to shift and change their healing with their patients and speed it up. You also see EMDR, the eye movement rapid desensitization process, where they do tapping at the same time as they move the eyes and think about stressful situations. That is also shown to be effective like EFT, right? They're very closely related, but EMDR can only be done by licensed professionals, whereas EFT is a little more accessible to the general public. It's really lovely. All right, so moving right along, this is what you need to know. So the parts that you need for a successful EFT self-care session. Number 1, is you're going to identify a specific event in time. And the time can be right now, it can be in the past, or it can be in the future. If you look at a lot of YouTube videos about EFT online, they'll say things like, okay, we're just going to tap on fear. So I feel fear around this, I feel fear around that, right? What we've realized in EFT, and this was especially noted in some of the studies around cravings, is that the more specific that we can be, the better your brain can focus and start clearing things. Because if you just talk about all these times that you felt nervous, right? Your brain is trying to process, oh, there's the time I felt nervous in 4th grade when I had to, go to a new preschool. Then there was a time in 7th grade when I went out on the date with that boy. And then there was a time in college when I had to give that presentation. And then there was a time I was getting married. Then there was a time I was getting divorced, right? So it thinks that all these times that you were nervous in your life, and it has a hard time focusing. But if we can look at, oh, the time in 4th grade when I was getting ready to go to that preschool, and I remember walking in the door with my mother and feeling my stomach flip, right? That specific event, we can clear very quickly. And then your brain is automatically linking it to other situations that have similar feelings. So by working one specific event really, really clearly, it will also help your brain start clearing these other events. And then what we do is we start chaining these events together. So once one event is neutralized emotionally, you can go to another event and neutralize that emotionally. And eventually what will happen is everything will start clearing around that sensation, around that feeling in those different ways. So you're gonna identify clearly how you are thinking about the event right now. So for example, if we go back to that, walking into the preschool when I was 4 years old with my mother, maybe then you felt really nervous. Maybe right now when you think about it, you feel betrayal because your mom should have supported you more, or whatever, right? So whatever you're feeling about it right now is important, because we can't change how we felt in the past, but we can change how we feel about it now. So another example I like to use, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. Find where in your body you feel it. And this is because the mind and the emotions are very strongly connected. So if we can tune into the body sensation, it also helps that neurological pattern shift and helps those cortisol levels shift. And then you're going to rate the strength of your emotion from 0 to 10. So how strong are you feeling that emotion right now? So identifying the event. As I mentioned, your event should be as specific and detailed as possible. So instead of saying, oh, that fight with my sister, it's more specific to say, well, yesterday when I was fighting with my sister, that's still better, and that's still going to get some movement. But if you can identify exactly what it was about fighting with your sister that triggered you or that upset you, like yesterday when I was fighting with my sister and she said, that was stupid. Right? Now your brain goes, oh yeah, that when she said that I was stupid, that's what made me angry, or that's what made me sad, or that's what made me whatever. Now we've got something really, really solid. So if you tell me your event and I wouldn't be able to picture what happened when you describe the event, it might not be specific enough. So if you're doing self-tapping on an event and you're noticing that your emotional intensity is not dropping, try being more specific about the event. Try breaking it down into smaller pieces. So that might mean you need to tap on a couple of rounds around when she called you stupid. It might mean to tap a couple of rounds around when she did that huffing thing that she does, right? So you may have to break it down and do it a few times, but you'll get smoother and more quick results than if you just tap on the whole fight in general, because there can be a lot of emotions that come up in one fight, right? Anger and frustration and sadness and, blah, 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 blah. So the more specific you can be about each part of the event, the faster the event overall will clear. And by faster, I mean, you're going to be able to get clarity around each emotion, right? Are there any questions so far about anything that I've covered? If so, you can unmute yourself. So I want you right now, everybody go ahead and write down an event. We're actually going to do some tapping together. So just as an example, just write down an event. Think of something that's fairly neutral that's happened either recently or that's going to be coming up, like maybe you're going to do a presentation tomorrow and you're a little nervous for it. So practice structuring this event. How specific can you be with it? Does anyone want to share their event just to have some practice and see if it's specific enough? Or does anyone need help constructing or refining their event?
I could share it on.
Sure. Go ahead, Les.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can.
So texting with a potential client today that asked me if I could squeeze him in this afternoon, and an hour later I had figured out how to squeeze him in, and when I got back to him, he was, oh, well, that doesn't work. And it's like, okay, I just moved 2 clients, made it all work, and just that frustration with that.
Okay. Great. So the event could be, you can tap on the whole thing and see if that works, but you may have to break that down even farther. So you may have to be it may have to be when he said that that's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you have to break it down more, but that's great. That's very specific. Nice job.
And he just said, and he just said, oh, like, no explanation, no suggestion of the time. I'm like, okay, well, now I know why you need coaching. Right in my head.
Right.
But it was just that frustration of communication, and I can pinpoint it right to when I got that no.
Yeah. Perfect. Does anybody else want to share? Thank you for sharing, Les. Okay. So then we will move on. Oops. So once you have your events and you know what you're feeling about that event and where you're feeling it in your body, I want you to go ahead and rate it from 0 to 10. So how strong is it right now when you think about it? And now we're going to create our setup statement. And our setup statement is it's the core. It's what reminds ourselves, it reminds our brain, it reminds our body what it is that we're experiencing, what it is we're working on, and where we're feeling it. So what we're doing is we're triggering those neurological pathways that are happening when we think about the event. So the first half is even though I feel, and then whatever your emotion is. And then and where your body part is. When I think about, oh, that's not in there, ha ha ha. When I think about the event, okay? So even though I'm feeling anger in my stomach, when I think about my sister calling me stupid when we were fighting yesterday. Okay, so the emotion, where you feel it, and the event, your specific event. Okay, so that's the first half of every single one of your setup statements. And the second half is going to be a self-acceptance phrase. So find one that resonates with you. So a lot of people use I deeply and completely accept myself, right? You'll see some people online saying the word love. I was taught not to use I deeply and completely love and accept myself, because sometimes the brain has a hard time wrapping itself around the word love. And for some people, it can make it less effective, not for everybody. But so I deeply and completely accept myself. If you don't accept yourself right now or in that situation, you can say something like, I'm open to accepting myself, or I accept I feel this way. Something that resonates strongly with you, that you feel really makes you feel good, right? So some kind of acceptance statement. So once you have your setup, the first half, even though I feel, emotion, body part about the event. Your second half is the self-acceptance phrase. Once you've got that statement will be repeated 3 times while we're tapping the side of the hand, which is our first point. Okay. So with the rest of the points, and we'll go through them all specifically, all you need to do, they're called reminder phrases. All you're gonna do is address the emotion and the body part, okay? So we're just reminding our body as we tap on the different acupressure points, what it is that we're working on, right? Just so we stay focused throughout the whole process. It's usually best if you keep your eyes open while you do this, because often if you close your eyes, the brain starts spinning into other areas. So most people find it most effective to keep their eyes open. Okay, so if everybody can see me clearly, here's what we're gonna do. So we start, I'm gonna go through all the points and then we're gonna actually practice it together, okay? So you're gonna start with your setup statement on the side of the hand here. And then the reminder phrase starts with the top of the head. So the top of the head, you can tap literally on the top of your head, right in the center. Good. The next point is the eyebrows. So it's kind of the center of your eye where your eyebrow comes in, right on the brow line. So some people do one side, some people do 2 sides, some people tap them both together. Sides do not matter. Okay, so whatever feels most comfortable for you. The next point is the side of the eye or the temple. The next point is directly under your eye, come right under your cheekbone there. And once again, you can do it one-sided, you can do it 2-sided, all these points. The next point is right in between your nose and your lip. So that point right there. The next is under the mouth. So between kind of the mouth and the chin. Now the next point is the collarbone. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna find your collarbones, right? And then if you come kind of together before your sternum, before your breastbone, there's that soft spot right there, kind of that, some people have like a divot there. But if you feel around, you'll find it. For some people, it's a little bit tender. It's just right underneath the collarbones. And so that's your collarbone spot. This is the one spot that you do want to tap on both sides. So if you have both hands available, you can use both hands. Some people will use 2 fingers and just tap both fingers. Some people will just use their whole hand and just tap their whole chest just so they cover it. And that's fine because it's radiating right through those bones there. So whatever feels most comfortable for you is fine. And the last point is under the arm. So if you find your armpit, go about halfway down, kind of right at the brow line for women, right at the nipple line for men. Okay. That would be the last point. All right. So let's do this together. So what's going to happen is I'm going to say the setup statement, and I'm just going to use the basic. I'm just going to say the sister example, okay? And I want you to repeat, but saying using your own example. Does that make sense? Okay. So you're going to start with the setup statement. So even though I feel angry in my stomach when I think about my sister fighting with my sister yesterday. Okay. So you can make sure that you say, even though I feel what you feel, body part, and the event. Okay. I deeply and completely accept how I feel. Great, so we're gonna do that 3 times. So even though I feel angry in my stomach when I think about fighting with my sister yesterday. I deeply and completely accept how I feel. And then your 3rd time. Even though I feel anger in my stomach when I think about fighting with my sister yesterday. I deeply and completely accept how I feel. Okay, so then we're gonna do our reminder phrase. So remember, your reminder phrase is only the emotion and where you feel it in your body, right? So top of the head, this anger in my stomach. Between the eyes, this anger in my stomach. Side of the eye, this anger in my stomach. Under the eye, this anger in my stomach. Once again, you can do 1 or 2-sided. This anger in my stomach under the nose, above the lip. Below the lips, this anger in my stomach. Collarbones, this is the one you want to do both sides. This anger in my stomach. And then under the arm, this anger in my stomach. When you're done, take a breath. Have a little sip of water if you have any. Perfect. And then reevaluate your level of intensity. So remember, before we started, we evaluated the level of intensity of our emotion from 0 to 10. So evaluate where it's at right now. Did it shift? Now be aware when you rate emotions from 0 to 10, so maybe you started at a 7, it could drop, it could go up. Because sometimes if we've been suppressing an emotion for a while, or maybe we weren't allowing ourselves to feel it fully, once we start tapping on it, it can go up, right? And so that's okay. So don't judge yourself. Don't think you're doing it wrong if it goes up. So did everybody experience movement, or let me say it this way, did anybody not experience movement in their level of intensity? Okay, great. So then reevaluate your level and see if it's the same. So now when I think about my fight with my sister yesterday, do I still feel angry? Maybe it shifted to a little more frustration, right? Or maybe it moved from my stomach to my chest. All of those things are possible. So as you reevaluate the exact same event, see if the emotion is the same, see if the body part is the same, okay? And then evaluate the intensity of emotion that you're feeling right now, and you're gonna repeat the process. Okay? So that's the basic EFT. So we'll run through it one more time, and you can say your statement at the same time with me. Okay? So even though I feel this anger at my sister, or at this anger in my stomach when I think about my fight with my sister yesterday. I deeply and completely accept how I'm feeling. So even though I'm feeling this anger in my stomach when I think about my fight with my sister yesterday, I deeply and completely accept how I'm feeling. And the third time, even though I'm feeling anger in my stomach when I think about my fight with my sister yesterday, I deeply and completely accept how I'm feeling. Okay. And then our reminder phrases. So starting with the top of the head, the anger in my stomach, right? So where are you feeling it? What's the emotion? On the eyebrow between the eyes, it's anger in my stomach. Perfect. Side of the eyes, the anger in my stomach. Under the eyes, the anger in my stomach. Under the nose, the anger in my stomach. Perfect. And then below the lips, above the chin, the anger in my stomach. Collarbones, the anger in my stomach. And under the arms, the anger in my stomach. Good. Take a breath. Have some water if you want. And then reevaluate your level of intensity. And you want to keep repeating this process with the same event until the intensity is 0. Okay? And as I mentioned before, if you're working on a specific situation, there may be different emotions involved. So you may have to tap for each individual strong emotion in this situation. So you might get your anger down to 0. And as it drops, it might switch from anger to frustration. And then when you're down to 0 with that anger and frustration, and what you're going to do is you're going to kind of retest yourself. So you're going to close your eyes. You're going to imagine that event, going through that event again. So I'm going to imagine that whole fight with my sister. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm not really angry anymore. You know what? I'm really sad that I had to fight with her about the same thing again, right? So a new emotion can come through. So then I would start there and I'd retap that. So even though I feel sadness in my heart when I think about arguing with my sister yesterday, right? Because we argued about the same thing we always do or something, right? So just be aware that if you're still having an emotional charge around the event, you may have to tap a few emotions because as we know, emotionally charged events usually do not contain just one emotion, right? So just know that that's possible. That being said, sometimes you only have 2 minutes to tap and you may only be able to get through one round, like just trying to calm it down really quick. And that's okay as well. But if you have the time, you have the space, you have the energy, it's best to tap it down to a 0. Close your eyes, imagine going through that situation again, and then tapping yourself back down to whatever else emotion comes up, bring that back down to a 0 as well, okay? And then same thing, close your eyes again, go through the situation again. Did anything else come up? Sometimes that something else that comes up is a different fight or a different fight. I'm using it because I'm using fights, but it may be a different event that's related or even something that doesn't seem related. So for example, today I was working with my EFT practitioner and we were working on this stuff that I'm doing. I'm writing a book and I'm waiting for permission from someone I did an interview with to use some of her information in the book. And she's talking to her lawyer and there's part of me that's afraid I'm not gonna get it and then I'd have to do all this work and rewrite this whole section, right? So that's what I was tapping on is, oh my gosh, what if I don't get this? Or what if she changes her mind and there's a lawsuit, right? So that all came up. And then what came up once I cleared all that was a lawsuit that I was involved in when I was 21 years old with a chiropractor that I worked for who took a bunch of money from me, right, that he owed me. And then they talked me out of suing him. The lawyer talked me out of suing him. His lawyer said, you don't need to do this. He's starting to pay you. And I went, oh yeah, he's starting to pay me. And then of course, once I dropped the lawsuit, he stopped paying me, right? So that came up in my event today, even though it had nothing to do with writing the book, nothing to do with this other woman, and nothing to do with that, right? So that, though you can have just related events that come up that are also linked. I also had a time once where I was talking about not being able to really experience joy when I was hanging out with one of my friends. It was like, we'd be really playful, but I was like, I'm not, like, there's something that in me that's afraid. And what it led back to was this childhood event that was super, I was playing in my room with my mom, and we were having a really good time, and I fell. And I thought it was super funny, and she thought it was super funny, and we laughed, but then I swore, and she slapped me, right? It was just her reflex, like, you're not supposed to swear. But for me, my brain had linked that. Like, even though I didn't think it was traumatic and whatever, my brain somehow linked playing with, you can get in trouble if you play too much, right? You can get hurt. So my brain had taken what was really kind of an innocent situation, my mom teaching me a lesson about not to swear, right? Because I was like 7 or 8 or something. But that had gotten linked to, you know, the way that I was playing with my friends when we were joking around and laughing, right? So sometimes these events that you think, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a big deal for me, will come up just because the brain starts linking all these things together, because it's our way of framing or viewing the world, right? So another time this comes up, I see this with people a lot, is money problems. They get concerned about money. They have fears about money. They get blocked getting money. And what we find out is that they overheard their parents when they were young arguing about money, or their mom or dad said something, you know, about like, well, those rich people are like that, right? And all of a sudden they get this belief that if they're successful, they're not going to be accepted, or that only that they would be put in that category, right? So there's a lot of things that we don't even think affect us that really are linked to some of the things that we're having right now, or some of the concerns, or some of the fears, some of the patterns we have in life, some of the beliefs we hold can come back to these little things that we didn't think were a big deal at the time, and maybe we don't even remember. Yes. So any questions about that? So if you're finding yourself caught or stuck or unable to move through something, or something keeps coming up over and over and over again in different ways, that's a really good time to consult a professional practitioner, right? Because we can help narrow it down and find that limiting belief, or find that memory. We've got a lot of different ways that we can help find those memories, or find those body sensations. Sometimes it's two things that are linked just by body sensation, not even by actual similarity of events. Say that again, Patty?
Do our statements have to be said out loud? Do we have to hear them?
Yep, it's best if you can say them out loud, because vocalization helps pull in different parts of the brain. However, if you're in a situation where you can't talk, you can say it internally. Right? So one of the things I'll teach people when they're actually in stressful situations, like maybe you're at a meeting or something, or whatever, and you're stressed out, you can actually tap the tips of your fingers together, or you can tap the side of your leg, right? Or you can just sit there when, you know, pretend like you're thinking, like say you're arguing with somebody, like, oh, think about that a little bit, you know, and you can actually rub the points, right? So you don't even have to hit all of them. If you're in the middle, if you feel yourself getting emotional during a situation and you want to stay calm, you can just sit and rub a couple points, or you can cross your arms and sneakily, you know, rub those points underneath, or tap those points underneath. And that will help start moving things so it doesn't get as emotional. And so it starts discharging it before it can become even a stronger pattern.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Are there any other questions that are coming up for people? Yeah, with my nephew when he was young, he'd start having a temper tantrum and I just reach over and tap on top of his head and he'd just get this grumpy face. And then he'd stop having a temper tantrum eventually. First he was like, "What are you doing, Auntie Dawn?" So I was talking about this a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of bring it home a little bit. So brain links. So if you look at that picture with the roller coaster, when I was in my one of my conferences in London, they were talking about some research studies, and one of the psychologists who's credited with really bringing EFT, because it's developed from a bunch of other practices, talked about situations like this, right? You can be in a roller coaster, for example, when you're young, right? And your body thinks, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm dropping down this hill, right? And in front of you is some guy with his arms raised, right? That's got hairy arms. And so for the rest of your life, every time you're in a business meeting or every time you're in an interaction with a guy with hairy arms, you feel a little bit uncomfortable and you don't know why. Maybe you don't even know it's because he has hairy arms, right? But your brain has somehow linked the hairy arms in front of you when you're going down that roller coaster to this idea that you're going to die or that you're in danger, right? So this is where EFT can be really interesting, because just by clearing these other emotions, it can unlink some of those learned patterns that we're not even aware of. So the lovely thing about tapping, one of the many anyway, we call them the 5 C's. And as you start tapping for yourself and as you tap with a professional, you'll find that 5 things will happen, right? And sometimes they happen all together, sometimes they happen in sequence, right? Doesn't matter. First of all, you'll find more calm around the situation, right? So if we're more calm around the situation, we have more ease and less stress about it. When we're calm, we have more clarity, right? We achieve clarity around what to do. So sometimes you'll be tapping like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to respond when I have to talk to my boss on Tuesday. Like I'm fearful they're going to say this. I'm fearful they're going to say that, right? You start getting a sense of clarity because you start calming down the emotion and your brain can actually focus on the solution instead of the fear or instead of the, oh gosh, remember when they said that or when they said this, right? Kind of like when you get into a fight with somebody and then afterwards, once you're calm, you're like, oh, I should have said that. Oh, I should have said that, right? So the same thing happens with EFT. Once we bring ourselves to a place of calm, we can have more clarity about what to do. Okay. Courage. With calmness and clarity, we have the courage to move forward instead of being paralyzed. So you can take those steps that you need to take or that you want to take, right? You can have that difficult conversation. You can have that confrontation. You can make bigger decisions in your life about what you want to do around jobs and relationships and those kinds of things. Okay? And then confidence, which allows you not to second guess what you're doing. And choice. We receive new thoughts in our mind of various choices so we no longer feel stuck. And I see this kind of thing all the time. Like I'll be tapping with a client around, that they're fearful to try to get a new client because, oh, what if they don't have the right tools for this client? And are they the right fit? So they get stuck on even reaching out to that client. And then as they're tapping, they're like, oh, you know what? I can pull in that person to help, or I can pull in that tool, or you know what? Actually, I have enough tools for them, right? So they can get clarity, they can get courage, get confidence to move forward. And so that's the really beautiful thing about EFT is it really allows you to find that for yourself. So whatever it is that we believe creates an attitude, which creates a behavior, which creates a result, which reinforces the belief, right? So this is kind of how our brain works. So if I believe that, you know, for example, money's hard to come by. That's going to create an attitude, right? That, oh, well, money is just hard to come by, which is going to create a behavior of not reaching out for money, perhaps, or maybe overspending money or whatever, right? Which creates a result of not having a lot of money, which reinforces the belief, right? So we get caught in these circles. And like I said, some of these things come from places that we're not even aware of. So maybe our behavior, actually, we're mimicking a behavior we saw in our childhood, or when we were in high school, or when we were in junior high, or when we were in college, or after we got divorced, or when we had kids, or whenever it was, right? Maybe we're mimicking a behavior we saw others do, and that's created the whole loop. Or maybe it started as a belief that we learned, saw, overheard when we were a child. Most of the things that we believe about life, we learned before the age of 5, right? 5 to 7, it kind of varies upon what psychologists that you see, right? So most of our core beliefs are actually developed before that age. And it usually comes from either hearing something or observing something or experiencing something that our brain links to that belief. So this is also where EFT can come in really handy, is we can trace that back, shift the brain pattern, shift actually the loop between the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the fight flight of the brain, calm down the stress hormones, and start recreating new pathways in our brain. So that way it's a little bit easier for us to think in a different way. So healing may not be so much about getting better. It's about letting go of everything that isn't you, right? All the expectations and all the beliefs, and becoming who you are. So I love that quote. I think it's very, very grounding, right? In what we're trying to do with healing. So when you're healing yourself, when you're having others help you, right? It's not about getting better, getting over something, or that you're not right, right? Healing is just letting go of something that's not you, so you can be more you. And that's really the way that I like to approach my work. So are there any questions? So the opportunity I'm offering you today is I do complimentary 30-minute personal strategy sessions. So before we get off the call, or you can email me, but we can schedule a 30-minute session with you over Zoom individually. We can review some of your tapping if you want to go over it one by one, one-on-one. We can talk about what your goals are with tapping, so I can help you figure out the best way to achieve those and maybe some angles that you can take. And then we can also talk about working with me if that's something that you feel ready for. Because I am doing a special through the end of December, 2 for 1 per month. So if that's something that you want to take advantage of, we can sit down and have just a 30-minute free strategy session and see if that's something that fits. So, any questions, any concerns, or does anybody want to schedule? Otherwise, this is the end of today. Once again, oh, that's not my thing. Oh, hey, there's that. My phone number, if you do have any questions, it's my business phone number. You can text or call. It's 651-401-6131. It's the same number that you used to call into Zoom today. And my email is dawn@bodyhealingpower.com. It also came through in the email that came through an hour ahead of time. So something comes up this hour, this offer is always open. You can call at any time. You can schedule with me at any time and book a half-an-hour session. If you need more help, if you need more support, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It was nice to see all of you. Have a lovely
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye-bye. How did I do that? There we go. I was trying to stop the recording and I stopped my video. There we go. Stop cloud recording.